Recording.
It's not like when you point a camcorder at the screen that it's sending that picture to.
Yeah. I mean, it basically is that. It's basically taking a picture of itself, taking a picture of itself, taking a picture. But it'll work. It'll record what we've got here on the screen. It's screen capture. I could also make it film me, but that's less useful. And I hate pictures of myself on the screen. All right, so a couple of things that I want to talk about. I'm not in the student view anymore, so this is a little, let me change it just so it's more like what you'll see. Student view. So the main thing is this relational theory, and before we even get started, there's so many things to do here. So I wanted to go over some of these things, and hopefully you'll look at some of them if you haven't already. Now, our first assignment was brainstorm pizza. That's basically what we did in class, and a lot of you had your own stuff, which was good. You could also just copy the stuff that's on the blog if you want. The organized pizza is not meant to be the diagram that I'm going to talk about today. That's actually not until about the next couple of assignments. So the organized is just what we were doing too. It's just the listing in groups, all right? And they don't have to be real tight groups. It's just sort of getting your first feel for that. Normalization will be a diagram, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. There's here, this is like an entity, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. And this will end up to be more like 5, 10 entities. I don't know how many exactly. But it'll be broken up a lot. And we'll talk about why, kind of today. And the thing is, if you have trouble with it, the open labs, which will be after this one, are to help you get through it. Also, if you turn it in and it's not quite right, I will comment. In some ways, I hate grading in this class because it takes a lot of work on my part because I try to comment all your diagrams, and they're complicated. And it gets, it's a lot of commentary. But I want you to understand it at the end, what works, what doesn't work, and all of that. This one's hard. This assignment is fairly hard, so don't panic. So I'm going to go back to the modules. I'm not going to go over these, but I want you to just know you probably should look at the Google Slides for relational theory and for normalization. We already kind of looked at this one. You can do that one if you want. But there's normalization, there's relational theory. There's also videos on these. This is one I made, which is okay. And then these are classroom videos. And as I said, classroom videos like this one is going to be are often full of dead spots where I went to help somebody, or questions where we kind of retreat and go back over things because there were questions. So these are a little bit messy, but they do cover the material. So there's one on relationships, one on normalization. So I would look at those too when you get a chance. And then we're going to kind of cover the same materials today, so you get lots of different takes on it. And hopefully it'll begin to click a little. I don't expect it to be crystal clear for a long while, but hopefully it'll begin to click. So those are the things to look at. Now I'm going to work in Lucid Charts. Let me go back. I'm going to go to Lucid Charts homepage. My homepage may look a little different than yours because I'm already logged in. Notice it has my Steve Conger up there. So I just want to reiterate, if you haven't done this yet, don't sign up for free. If you sign up for free, you get like 2 charts and it's crippled. You want to go all the way to the bottom. And you want to do the education one. And you need to use your EDU email address. Okay, everybody has one. You may not have ever used it. You may never use it again, but everybody has it. And it's just like mine. It's your first name, period, last name, at seattlecolleges.edu. I don't think it even sends you a key. It just lets you do it, right?
It just lets you sign up.
But you need that edu at the end of your email address. So this is it's a nice program for diagramming. It has all sorts of different kinds of diagrams. You might see that I have lots of them. I think with the student one, they limit you to 10. Is that right?
I don't know.
Yeah. If they do limit you to 10, what I've heard from others, if you delete one, say you have 10, you delete one, you can make it one. So it's just that you can't have more than 10 at once.
And you can, if you submit it, then you can download it back off of it. If you delete it out of your account, you can actually drag it back off Canvas.
Oh, okay.
Reshare it back to yourself.
Oh, okay.
So if you need it again after you've deleted it, you can bring it back.
I'm gonna sound like an idiot. I'll be honest here, but I haven't used my Seattle Central email at all. How the hell do I log into it so I can check?
That's a good question. I don't know.
It's, do you know how to log into Office 365?
I forgot.
Okay. All the information's on
It should be on.
IT stuff.
So let's look. If you do Seattle Central, doesn't it have a page that tells you?
Yeah.
Like I just haven't used it in so long, and
Under the IT department.
Is it just in the IT department, or
Yeah, there's a page that shows you how to get access to it.
it wouldn't be international? So under the library, contact, faculty. I don't. You know this site very well. They've redone it too. Current students. Office 365.
Yeah, I think it'll tell you how to get to it, how to log into it.
So username at Seattle. Create an account. Create one. Can't access your account. Sign in.
Well, so that actually gives you the diagram of what your email address is.
Yeah.
So you don't actually need to ever log into it unless you, for some reason, end up getting emails from it.
They've been trying to. This isn't super relevant for right now, but they've been trying to figure out a way to encourage people to use these because it would be a lot better for like notifying people if they could send it all to one place.
My one problem is that you can't, because it's through a school account, you can't set it up to forward.
Oh, you can't?
No.
I didn't know
haven't
that.
figured out how to do it yet.
Huh.
Because the way you normally forward through Office
Right.
365, you don't have access to.
Huh. I haven't, because when I log in, I have.
Then I would just have it forward to my regular email address, and then I would be fine.
Yeah.
I just have it. I just use my my existing Gmail accounts and then avoid the because I don't really want to go through the hassle of setting up a new account.
That's true, but there are lots of things that are only free with your EDU account. If you're doing things with the school, there are several. Now, this one, I don't think it matters whether you actually go into
No,
your
you
account.
automatically have it.
Yeah, you have the account. Some free software, you have to go to that account to get your key.
Or if you have to do a password reset.
Yeah.
Or something, but
But just as a, just to let you know, if you don't use the EDU, they only let you do 2 charts, and they cripple it. They don't let you use all the tools.
yeah, you only have so many boxes you can do.
Yeah. With the EDU, you have a full suite of, you can use all the tools and 10 charts. I did it as an educator, as a teacher. I have no limits on my number of charts or anything. But I did have to provide additional information to prove that I was a teacher. All right, so are we You can use other software besides this, but I'm trying to think of what other soft. Some people have just drawn it like with Office tools, but that's a pain. Also, as I've said, I've allowed people to draw it by hand and take a picture of it, but that's also not ideal. So I'm going to do a blank ERD. Now, the trouble is with having used this is that when I log in, I have a different picture here than you guys do. What do you get when you do? So if I do document, do you get something like this?
Yeah.
All right. Do you have the same boxes up here? You may not. You do. Okay. So do an entity relationship. And I want a blank one, which I think was a little different with yours. Hi. Anywhere you want to sit. I just want a blank ERD. What? Yeah, just a blank ERD. Do I have that as in here? I don't. There it is. A blank ERD is fine, and then I'm going to create the document. Now again, if you don't have this, you can kind of watch. Let me see about, do you have your login and all? Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, so, have you logged into these labs?
Oh, no. Just go down.
You can do student. Yeah, go ahead and do student, and then it's password. With the first letter of your first name and the last name. That won't work. Go ahead and just do student. And then password. So capital P, password. Zero. And I'll give you your own account in here. We're not hooked to the other accounts. We're not hooked to the other accounts. But I'll make sure you get it. It's on the web, Lucid Charts. So go to Google, just press, hit that. Just type Lucid Chart.
All the work?
Yeah. And then press enter. And then you should that one right here. Yeah. And then, as I said, don't do the free one. Go down to the bottom. Very bottom. And then education. And then use your EDU labels. So it'd be first name, dot, last name.
I have to use student password.
No.
Okay. Mine's working other classes, so that's
This has nothing to do with that. This is just registering for the Lucid Charts.
Is it Seattle Schools .edu?
Seattle Colleges.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's first name, last name, first name dot last name, Seattle at seattlecolleges.edu. So we're logging into Lucid Charts. So if you do Lucid Chart, just the website. Lucid, Lucid Charts. Okay, we just press enter. Do the top one. And then go down all the way to the
I typed that in. And now just sign in itself.
Yeah, that looks good, so sign up for free. So do your EDU, first name dot last name, at seattlecolleges.edu.
Which one did you pick?
So you're a student.
Then period, last name.
Oh, I'll take that.
Add.
Then you get started. And then it's a blank. It's a blank ERD.
Oh, so
Blank would work
That-
with that one, yeah.
Yeah, period, yep. Yep, you got it. And then last name. And then add.
Wish I knew a way to
Create
pause the
document.
video.
Create document, right?
Yeah, making it
Yeah.
Oh, I need to delete this. And you're in. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I skipped it.
And then he's going
He's gonna give us.
It's the relationship.
Well, not Gmail. I have
ERDs.
Seattle Central.
Like
First name dot last name.
Like here, just okay, now hit create document. Yeah. So, and then that'll be exactly where he's.
Let's do your student.
Scroll down a little bit.
You want
And then go to, okay, it was already in there, so you're good.
you guys okay?
You're exactly where he is.
Alright, so Lucid Charts. Go ahead and have it. Go all the way to the bottom. Education. And then, your whole first name, your last name, at, Seattle Colleges. .edu. So your whole first name and then your last name. Seattle
Started
Colleges.
to gather information, which is
You get that
cool.
automatically once you What?
And that's.
No, whole first name, whole
You
last
still do.
name. First name dot
It's really
last
easy.
name.
And then you'll be entirely done with this, because we've only done this thing.
And most of colleges have
Other stuff, like, we figured out what our piece of program.
I'm not sure, but-
Information of it. And then put it together, and then what is
I think you do. You really,
I just wanna make sure I'm starting at how this,
We're gonna work on things.
we were on this morning?
Yeah.
The videos on Canvas.
Oh, you looked at it?
Will pretty much cover everything. He's really good about throwing everything.
Not even get it, just get rid of it.
We don't have a book. Everything's gonna be modules or videos. So it's easy. Yeah, it's cheaper, easier. Some ways I wish there was something easier. We cover stuff, read through it. You're welcome.
Well, so, why is it saying that?
Yeah. I have it written down.
What is it that should be asking me? Would you go to the bottom and choose education? Okay, so education. And do the, your full name, first name. And then, last name. Go into Seattle Colleges. What? get a view at the end. I don't know. Hopefully that went through as a student account. Anyone else? This is why there's dead spots on the video. So, as I said, this is a nice program that's free to an extent. If you want full features beyond the student one, you can pay for it. But the student account should be good enough for most things. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about relationships between entities and what an entity is and all of that. But I think what I'm going to do is let's build some groups for something like a Jiffy Lube. Again, this was in the video or the slides for gathering information, which I don't think I did in this class because I was tired from doing it in the other class. And I just sort of summed it up really fast. But I'm going to bring over, this is an entity relationship. I'm going to bring over if you go down, you might see you have these drawing tools. You need to drag them in. I'm bringing the one in with 2 columns. There's actually a couple of 2 columns, but this is the one with the smaller first column, so the second entity there. An entity, does anybody have a description of what an entity is? Let me make my zoom bigger too.
Is it just me or is it really cold?
Just drag anywhere in there?
What? Anywhere, yeah. It says it's 70, so I don't know. Nobody have a good description of an entity?
What would the entity be like? Pizza parlor, like group names? Like.
It could be. I mean, basically, more abstractly, an entity is basically a description of what it will probably be a table. So an entity is basically the logical design for a table. When you create it, the difference, not that I'm going to care a whole lot about the difference between an entity and a table is that this is purely a logical structure, and the table is physical in the sense that you write it to the database, it's written to a disk. Does that make sense? So entities are kind of the logical design of a table. So if we were doing, just to start off, if we were doing this Jiffy Lube kind of thing, you would probably have an entity like vehicle, right? Remember how we were grouping things? Yeah.
I have one question. How do you get that you can highlight the text?
I just used my mouse and...
See, every time I've logged into it, it hasn't let me. I click on the area and I can type, but it doesn't let me like copy or...
It doesn't let you...
the text. It doesn't show me a little text flashing thing.
It should.
Yeah,
You just have to double click on that.
oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. You can also double click it.
Yeah, that works.
So what are some of the things that would be part of a vehicle?
License number.
So license number. What did you have?
Oh no, look.
That's not how you spell license. That's wrong.
Let's see.
Is there a spell check on this?
No, there is not.
Oh.
What else? Probably model, make.
Yeah, your make and model.
So when you get to the end here, if you want to add one, there's a thing up here that says below. We'll deal with the key thing later. What else?
I'm sorry, can you do the thing where you added
Yeah, what was the below thing?
So if I have, like, I'm years highlighted here, if I click the below, it'll put a new field below it. If I click above, it'll put a field above it.
Where do you click that? Oh.
It's right up here. You can also delete from here. You can also, if you know how many fields, you can put a number in here. What else would we want to know besides license number, model, make, year? Is there anything else we'd want? Would we care about the color? Maybe.
Probably owner, who the owner was.
So you might want the owner, yeah. We'll fix that later in terms of relating it to something, but yeah.
Whenever there's a police report, they can put the number, the license, and the code.
Okay, but well, we could add color. I never would have thought to add it, but we can.
It is another descriptor, sometimes they use.
Anything else? This is kind of like we'd done the brainstorming, right? And now we're grouping them. When you turn in your grouping assignment, though, you do not have to put it in the entity
The
format.
number of owner,
The what?
the number of owner, how like there's some call, it's like when there's enough. I should make you.
Well, let's do that because it will give me something to work with later when we break things up. This, I'll just let you know, probably wouldn't be there.
Can you go back up trying to see all that?
Why?
Yeah, I'm trying to see all that,
Yeah.
Also the brand or the manufacturer.
So isn't that make?
Yeah,
Oh,
is
yeah.
who made it.
And then the model, so the make would be Toyota and the model would be Prius or whatever, right?
Where it was made,
What?
where it was made, maybe.
Do you care about that if you're changing oil?
Changing oil.
Yeah, this is about changing a place that changes oil.
Oh.
VIN number might be used in there because there are discrepancies.
Possibly.
But that would be at the far end.
Oh, here's another. Just although you can in a diagram like this, when you build the database, spaces are illegal characters.
Oh.
It doesn't matter in the diagram much, but I try not to space in the diagram because the table names and table columns can't have spaces. They can have underscores. So if you prefer, you could do VIN underscore number, right? I usually use the camel case. Also, although I'm being real sloppy here, it's a really good idea to be consistent about how you name things and how you capitalize, which I'm not being.
How do I get more rows?
So the way you add rows is you can, wherever you want, you can do below or above.
I'm missing that little toolbar.
Shouldn't be. Click on one of these.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
I think it just a row has to be selected for it to. And does mine go away when I? It may be. Yeah, mine goes away if I don't select something too, right? So something has to be selected for it to come down. And to add a row or above, you need to actually select a row to do above or below. All right, so what other kinds of groupings do you think there would be? Because we're going to go through, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about normalizing these. Employees would probably be a good grouping. I tend to name these singular too. Some people would prefer plural. It doesn't. Again, consistency is a good thing, but what kinds of things do we need to know about the employees? So we probably want their name. Some kind of number, so employee number or employee ID. Anything else? Email, phone, address. What?
Email, like I think play phone number.
Yeah, you might want a phone. You might not. I don't know. This kind of depends. I'm assuming this is not the human resources database. Let's add an email, though, just to be. Now, these keys I'm just ignoring for right now. We will adjust that later. What else? Anything else in this? Possibly, although this is maybe their position, in the sense of, are they a mechanic, are they a clerk, sales, whatever.
Rate of their pay.
I'm not sure I would put their pay here, but you maybe could. As I said, this isn't like a whole human resources.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that this would connect to a different database that we're going to ignore, which would have all of their Social Security information, all of their tax deductions, their pay scale, and all of that. I just want enough here to identify who works on a car. Yeah.
If you were to do a grouping like this, what would normally be a minimum number of groupings you would want in one of those?
You mean for like a database?
Yes.
I'm not sure there is a minimum. So generally it's going to be more than one. We will find out when we do this. It'll end up, I think we'll make probably 4 or 5 big groupings. And by the time we go through the process, we'll end up with like 15 or 20 different tables or entities. It depends on the complexity of what you're working with. It could be as few as 4 or 5 or as many as several hundred.
I just was wondering if there was a minimum that people normally expected.
Would be something to identify that.
The thing is that there are rules for breaking it up that we're going to talk about in just a minute. We're going to do this sort of brainstorming for a minute, and then we'll start going through the rules for normalizing, which breaks it up even more. And then we'll talk about how they relate, which breaks it up even more sometimes. I think I'll delete this last one here. What else? So we got employee, we got vehicle. We probably have customer, right? What?
The other one paying for it.
And probably the owner over here would be the customer, right? So yeah, probably some kind of customer ID. What else do you need to know about a customer? Name. What else?
Phone number.
Probably want a phone.
Probably want a billing address if they bill.
Yeah, although most of these places make you pay on the spot, they're not going to bill you. But you might want their address.
What their.
If nothing else, you want the address to send them coupons and advertisements, and
Same would go with email if we want it.
you might want an email. Probably for the address, I'm going to break this up into address, city, state, and zip. I will say that names are often broken up into first and last, often first, last, middle initial, and then what do you want to call it? whether it's Mr. and Mrs., Doctor, you know. There's a word for that, but it's escaping me right now. Title, yeah. So you could break up a name like that. You can only search for the fields that you have. So if you have a whole name field, you have to search for the whole name. Right? If you break it up, you can search for last name or first name or whatever. But right now we'll leave it. And then email was one. Anything else for customer?
So you say they will be paying with cash? Well, upfront.
Well, so you could pay with cash or card. I'm not sure that would, because they might pay differently different times.
Can you go back up? I can see everything.
Do you want to like have them have one car that we associate with them?
We can. I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's, for right now, put that there. We can get rid of it later. What if they have multiple cars is the thing. I'm going to do vehicles there. We'll change that. Anything else? This, by the way, I mean, it's good to copy it and do this, but I'm not going to ask you to ever turn this in. This is just an example. Anything else for customer?
Insurance?
Do you care in a? I mean, if you're a Jiffy Lube,
Oh.
you know, you would if you were an insurance company or if this was a police report or something.
Okay.
But we're just interested in it in terms of servicing it for oil and brakes and things like that. I will add one more, which I think is actually always useful. The date added, the date or the date entered. It's actually really useful for almost anything to know what date something was ever entered or changed. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Questions on those? I think we're going to do like one more thing here, and then we will start breaking it up by talking about normalization and then how the relationships go. There are videos on these things, but I kind of want to walk you through it again while you're here and can ask questions. So the whole point of this place is to actually do services on the car. So one of the things you might have, I think two things I'm going to add. One is you might have a list of what services they offer. I'm going to call it, let's call it service types. And I'm going to give it like a service ID or type ID. And a service type name. When you run over the edge like that, if you grab the little blue box, you can widen them. Possibly a service price. Price is probably more complicated than that, but you could do that. So, a service type name would be like basic oil change, $40 or $50, whatever they charge you. Brake inspection, and then there would be a price. That's what a service type is. One of the things you don't want to do in these diagrams is you don't want to list things like brake inspection. That's data. That's not. We want the headings. We want the column headings. That's all, right? When we build the tables underneath these headings, you'll put things like brake inspection, oil change, windshield wiper change, lights, tail light replacement, whatever your services are. But you don't list those things in the diagrams. The diagrams are just the headings the top level column headings. Does that make sense? I ask because I always am not sure I am making sense. I'll make this smaller and I will post this on the blog, so if you don't get everything, it will be there. Okay, so we've got service types, and then the last thing, and then we'll start talking. So, yeah, either you can call it transaction, although I almost would never do that. The reason I wouldn't do that is it's a reserved word in databases. So it can cause some problems that way. I'm going to call it vehicle service because it's the service that is applied to the vehicle. What would be involved with this?
Would that be services you've done on a vehicle?
So it's when it's in the shop right now, basically. What's so each time it comes to the shop, there would be a record of that, and this would be that record. So you say what?
Was it the record ID? Or like
I didn't hear the first.
record ID or like
Record ID? Or some kind of ID for this? Yeah. So you could call it vehicle service ID. You could call it record ID. Some sort of ID. What else do you need to know?
The date and time of
You do
arrival?
need to know the date and time. So there's a field called date time, although you shouldn't name the column that. Let's do it service date. Or service timestamp.
is that like including both the date?
That includes both the date and time, or you could separate it if you want. The databases have data types. They also have time data types. They also have date time data types. What else do we need to know? Well, we do want to know the costs, although we can kind of figure that out if we tie what services are done, right?
We'd also tie employees to it.
Yeah, you probably also want to, and this is going to cause, we'll play with this a little bit, but it's going to be more complicated, I'll just tell you, but employees. You also need to know what vehicle, right? So price you can get from the services. I'm going to do this as service. Well, we'll leave it that way.
Is there any way like to indicate that they have more than one service? Or
There is, and let's hang on that for a minute because these two are totally illegal. Services and employees. We'll figure that out in just a minute. I'll show you how to handle that.
Wait, what's below employees?
Vehicle.
Okay.
I'm just looking to see what we got. Now these keys, I'm going to just delete them right now, and we'll add keys as we need. Not every field is a key. In fact, most of them are not. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I just want to get rid of them. We'll add some keys in a moment. My naming in this one sucks. If you look at the morning one, I was a little more careful. All right. So we got these. This is kind of like what your groupings would be, except as I said, you don't have to put your grouping assignment into entities. So an entity is just a name, right? At the top, you give it a name, and then you have the attributes, which are basically the column names that come below it. So that's what an entity is. Now, over here we can put some key information. Some of these, like a customer ID, that would make a good primary key, and that's often done as just a PK, primary key. Does anybody remember what a primary key is, or what its attributes are? What
It's unique.
it has to be unique in the table. That means no two customers can have the same primary key, right? So it has to be unique throughout the tables. The table. So typically something like this is just a number, because it's easy to keep numbers unique, but it doesn't have to be. So in car, or in vehicle here, there's a couple of things that could make a reasonable key. Now you could do a vehicle ID and just auto number it. That's actually what I would do. But there are a couple of other things that work as a primary key. Can you think of
number?
the license number should be unique per vehicle, right? So license number is a good key, what they call a candidate key. There's one other that's the VIN number is also unique. So either one of these could also be a primary key, or you could just auto number it. You could just put a random number in it. Yeah.
What is a VIN number?
VIN, every vehicle created, manufactured, has a number about what that specific vehicle as it comes off the
Oh,
manufacturer's.
so it's like a serial number.
It's a serial number for it off the.
It means vehicle identification number.
And they can use that for things like they can keep track, like when you do if you buy a vehicle, you can do a check to see if it's ever been in an accident, and it's based on the VIN number.
So wait, wouldn't that technically be saying VIN, vehicle identification number? If VIN
Yeah, it is number, but yeah.
Kind of like ATM machine.
So if you don't want number there, you don't have to. You could just say VIN, because you're right, number is in VIN. You could even also write it out, vehicle identification number. So you have choices here for primary keys. I'm going to choose the license number, but as I said, I tend to these days just to make everything an auto number. Yeah.
Do you normally only want one primary key?
There
per
can be only one primary key per table. Now it gets a little more complicated in that a primary key can consist of more than one column, but it's still a single key. So if I did the license number and the VIN number together as a primary key, that would be legal. But it means that whenever I had a foreign key, which we'll talk about in a minute, I would have to transfer both the license number and the VIN number. They're one key, so I have to repeat them both as a foreign key. It's called a composite key when you have more than one column as part of the key. It's not usually a good idea, though there are times when it's useful. When you do a school, this won't be on the film though, when you do like a class, this is what, 3176 I think is our item number. The trouble is they use that item number every quarter. So the item number is not unique. And it doesn't necessarily apply always to the same class, although it usually does. So you would need, along with this, you would need the quarter. But again, the quarter happens every 4 times a year, the same quarter over and over again. 3176 could happen several quarters. So then you need year. The combination of those three would make a always unique key. That would be where a composite key could be used, although you can just say screw it and just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just use random numbers, which is what I would do, as I say. If you want to use, these are called natural keys. They're part of the data. but they often have the problem of being unique. It's difficult to guarantee that they will always be unique. License plate numbers should always be unique. Social security numbers, why they always use them is that they should be unique. Again, they're not allowed by law now to be used that way, but they're supposed to always be unique, although they're not entirely unique. They recycle them when you've been dead long enough. They sometimes reapply them to somebody else.
That sounds like a recipe for something bad.
Well, again, dead long enough.
Well, I mean, they're gonna reach a point where it's like going
The trouble with the Social Security number, although I think they've gone to mostly random now, but it used to be that 6 of the 9 numbers were fixed by what region and state you were born in.
I mean, kind of like a phone number.
Yeah, and even phone numbers have pretty well kind of loosened that up a bit.
So you could brute force it by that standpoint, right? Because if you know where somebody was born from, you just need to brute force the last 3 numbers.
Yeah, I think it's the last 4 numbers are free, but it's still not enough free numbers. So I'm pretty sure it's all random now.
When did they change that? Do you know?
I don't know, but I know they were running out of numbers. It's the same problem with IP addresses.
Mm-hmm.
So IP addresses, the traditional IP address, had each part of the address meant something, and so you only had like 4 numbers for free at the end. With the fix, that wasn't enough, which is why there was all the masking and all that. That's why they've created IPv6 or IP6 that has basically a huge number of possible addresses. Fixed numbers are always a problem. One of the so that's not really relevant to what we're doing, but the thing is, it needs to be unique. Even if you had 1 billion records, it has to be unique, right? And numbers are the easiest way to guarantee that is just randomly count your numbers. All right, so primary keys. But let's talk a little bit about normalization. How are we doing on time? Okay. I'm going to bring a text box over here, and I'm doing that just so I can type in here. Did anybody look at the videos on normalization or any of that? A little bit, the videos. Does any of it make sense? Okay, so I'm going to do first.
What's text box? First box?
What?
First box to the left?
I just did a text box, yeah.
Which one is that?
Up here where it says.
Right here, yeah.
And again, this is being recorded and I'll post it, so if you don't catch everything. This is just sort of like text because I don't want to go off of it. Anybody remember, there's basically two or three things in first normal form. These normal forms, by the way, are basically, they were written as white papers by database experts as ways of curing little problems that occur in databases. There are about a dozen normal forms. We're only going to look at the first 3 because if you can get through the first 3, your chances are that the database will work, right? You can still refine it some more, but the first 3 are usually sufficient to make sure that it's going to work. Normalization is a term that you'll hear if you ever work with databases. I could describe in plain words basically what each of these does, but it's good to have the normalization technical things. Yeah.
Never mind.
Okay.
Well, actually, so is there a break in the middle of class or?
We could take a break if you need.
Okay.
Do you guys want a break?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take like a 10-minute break. The only thing is, I don't know how to stop the video. So it'll have a long 10-minute dead spot in here. It has other dead spots.
I think there's an option to pause and connect.
I'm not in.
Oh, great idea.
Do you know how to edit?
I could possibly edit. I don't see a way to pause. Maybe? Is that a pause?
Press pause.
I hope it's running. Okay. Basically, it has a couple of things. All the data in a column is of the same type. What that means is that if it's a date column, everything in that column are dates, right? If it's names, everything in that column is a name. You don't accidentally put an email in your name column. If you're doing, you don't mix emails and phone numbers, right? It's all emails, they're all phone numbers. Everything in a column has to be of the same kind, no mixing and matching of things in a single column. So, the license number is all license numbers. You don't put anything else in there. So that's one of the things. The other thing is there can be no arrays or repeated. I don't know how to put it, or let's put it like enumerated. What that means is everything has to be single. You guys know what arrays are?
Yes.
It's like a list of things. So you're not allowed to do lists. Yeah, an array is a list.
Huh.
What were you thinking?
I thought an array was like a lookup table.
Not well, in programming it's a list of things.
Okay.
So basically you can't do multiples. You shouldn't have a field that lists a lot of things. Like if you had a CD, you wouldn't want to have a field that said tracks and then list all the tracks. You also don't, yeah.
So it's not possible to know how to use to multiple vehicle within one person.
Right. Well, so we're going to do that in a second. So if we look at normal form down here, so we want to look for things that are multiples. All right, so one of the things is number of owners, actually I'm not sure that that's multiple. You could just use a single number there. Although I'm not sure you would know this. Let's see, I'm looking for things that are multiple.
Customer and then vehicle.
So vehicles is one. So you couldn't have a list of vehicles there, right? That's not allowed. And there's reasons why it's not allowed. If you try to query it and you have a list of vehicles, that means you can't find any one vehicle because it won't return a piece of a field, it always returns the whole field. If you wanted to search for a particular vehicle and you had lists of them like that, you would have to do a substring programming function to pull it out. So it's not worth doing. It's just, you're not supposed to do legal. And this isn't where I would put it, so I would actually just delete this one. I will show you how to relate them in a moment. In the vehicle service, we have services and employees. Does that make sense? These are both plural, because when you come in, you pull into the thing, over the pit. There could be several different services that they provide, and it could involve several different employees. So in order to handle that, what happens is you have to break things out. So I am going to do like this is the vehicle service. I'm going to do a vehicle service detail. Now that's a terrible name, but whatever. I'm going to give it just a ID. Vehicle service detail ID. You can catch this little blue thing and stretch it. It's also going to have a vehicle ID or a vehicle service ID. Does that make sense to you? Because we need to tell what service it belongs to. And then what we're going to do is for each one, we're going to do maybe a service. Did I say service IDs for that? Service type ID? because it comes from the service. And then we'll also do an employee ID. Actually, we probably need to break employees out to another entity. I don't know what to name this one. I'm going to abbreviate service detail employee. I'll try to get it online. Because we need to know, for each one of these services, it could involve multiple employees, right? So it needs the detail ID to attach it to this, and it needs the employee ID. It actually, that should be sufficient.
Is this going to just go into like a little version of single sort of thing where like for each of the service things there's like a service for that service and then a...
So what would happen? I'm trying to think of how... So you have the service, right, that is going to be done with the vehicle. And so I'm going to delete... Whoa, not that.
Control Z.
Control Z, yes. I just want to get rid of this. Get rid of this. This part will stay. All right, so you get the service, what time, what vehicle. And then what this is a so say that this is the vehicle service ID. So this is basically the 10th one for the day or whatever. Say it's number 10. So this would be 10. This one would be 10. This one would be 1. And then the service type ID is an oil change. Does that make sense?
I guess.
Do you need a
What?
Do you need a primary key for the vehicle service?
Yes, there's going to be. We're going to change all these keys. So if we did this would be a primary key.
That one will be
And this would be, these two would be foreign keys. We'll talk about that in a moment. So this would be a primary key, and this would be a foreign key.
Does A2 is a replicate primary key though?
What?
There's the primary key is the same on the. Is the primary key the same?
Oh, so these should be, let's make this one as,
Would that be like a foreign key?
it would be like a foreign key. So I probably should make a, I would want something named differently than this, but I'm going to, oops. I just want to copy it. All right. That's a terrible field name. It's just too long. But anyway, that's the thing. And that would be a primary key. All right. So I could show you the data. I was going to show you a little bit of how the data would work here. You would have, let's get back to where we got it. You would have a service. The car came in, it has a number, right, for that service, for whatever. And it would have a time that it came, and it would have a vehicle that was being involved. That vehicle would be in there, and it would have one or more services. Is it tied back to that service ID and that timestamp and that vehicle? And so they could have an oil change, headlight replacement, whatever the services are. Each one of those things would be a separate row, all with the same service ID. For each of these service details, one or more employees would be involved, right? So in the oil change, there might be 2 different employees, so that there would be 2 different rows in this one that are tied to this detail ID. The thing about relational database modeling is it's complicated. It's like a logical puzzle, and you keep breaking things apart more and more, right? And the reason we broke these apart is so you're not allowed to have plurals. You're not allowed to have lists or repetitions. Real quickly, I'm going to go back to the normalization assignment. This is for later. The other thing besides arrays is that this kind of listing is also forbidden. So a book can have multiple authors, right? But if it only has one author, these 2 would be blank. If it has 4 authors, you have no place to put the 4th one.
So you do an array of authors?
No, you never do an array of authors. You have to separate out authors as a separate entity. I'll show you real quickly. Do I have one here? I'm going to go back to documents real quick. Do I have book and authors? Actually, I'm going to do a separate little thing right here. So let's do real quickly, let's do book and authors. So I'm going to bring this in. This will be book. And it'll have a book ID. I'm not going to do all the fields. This is just to show a point. ISBN, which could be the ID, and then a title. So this is the book, and I'm going to do a primary key here. I don't know what that was. Okay, so that's your book. And then I'm going to do author. And I will do author ID. And I will do, author name. I'm just going to do name. I think that's enough for the demo. Now, to associate it with the book, you need to create another entity, and I'll call it author book, which has the book ID and the author ID.
Oh, so it's like so it's a compound.
You can. So I would actually make it a compound. I would make it a primary key and a foreign key.
So it's like an A to B, B to C sort of.
Yeah. That's actually exactly what it's like. So we haven't done relations yet, but it would be like this. So one author can have many books. One book can have many authors. And you only list the number of authors that it actually has. If it's only got one, you only list one here. So book 1 has 1 author. Book 2 has 4 authors. So you list book 2 gets repeated 4 times. But the author ID is different each time. This is called a linking table. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but I'm not sure if we're going to get there. Does that make sense? I mean, you have to break it apart. Again, the relationships are difficult. So I'm going to go back to here. So first normal form we kind of dealt with, and then we'll try to do the relationships here first. So no repeated values, no listing. Okay, that's the gist of it. Second normal form. I'm just going to put in another text box. Second normal form assumes that you've achieved first normal form, not normal. So it assumes first. And it's what you're supposed to be looking for are what they call functional. You want to remove all functional dependencies. I don't think we have any, but we'll look. So functional dependencies means that there's a list of things in your table that is not related to what the table is about. So if we go back to the normalization assignment, I'm helping you a little bit here. Notice how there's a publisher name, publisher address, publisher city. These don't relate to the book. They're about publisher. It's a whole list of things that don't belong in a description of the book. You need to pull it out and create a publisher entity. Does that make sense? These are talking about publisher, not about the book. That's what a functional dependency is. It's a list of, it's a sublist inside of a table or an entity that doesn't talk about the main topic, which is books.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Mine goes off once in a while. So I'm going to go to our diagram. Do we have any places where we're listing things that don't belong? See, I don't know that we do. We've already broken out those things. We've got customer. There's nothing in customer that doesn't describe customer, really. There's nothing in service types. Let's see, vehicle. It's not really anything in vehicles that doesn't describe vehicles. So I think we're okay for second normal form there. But it's not uncommon when you're first grouping things to end up with groups like publisher, right? That where you basically got a whole bunch of things that are describing something other than the book, other than the topic. The topic is always what the name of the entity is and what the key is. Nothing. There should be nothing in this except about books. Now you can add a link to the publisher name, but you can't have a whole bunch of fields that relate to the publisher. Does that make sense? So it's like a subset inside of a set. You can't have that. So you need to create a publisher and then maybe just do a publisher ID here. Okay, so let's go back. Third normal form is even more subtle, and I'm speeding up a little because we're running out of time. Oh, I don't want an entity. I want another text box. It's basically, third normal form is what's called transitional or transitive dependencies. And these are real subtle. These are like one, it's the difference between them and two is like one field that doesn't belong. And again, I'm looking, we may be all right. But if there's just one field that describes something other than the entity. So I don't see anything here, possibly number of owners. Question?
I didn't catch the. Okay, thanks. No.
So it basically means it's the difference between this. This is a whole set of fields that don't describe. It's a whole subset. This is just one field that doesn't really describe what's going on.
How do you determine like what is it?
So the subject is basically, you look at this. This is all about the vehicle. Everything in here should be about the vehicle. So a vehicle has a license, it has a model, it has a make, it has a year, it has a owner. Now the number of owners on the vehicle, you could argue violates that third normal form. Because it's really these two. So I would probably cut that one. Sometimes you can cut them, sometimes you have to move them into their own entities. All right. But we did pretty good when we did these, that we didn't do a lot of those things. if you have these, if you get rid of, the gist of these is that there should be no listing, no repetition of field names. All right, so in a thing, so there should be no plural things in a entity. It should all be about one thing, and nothing should be in it that isn't about that one thing. Does that make sense? That's basically reducing. That's what these all reduce to. Every entity is about one thing. There should be nothing in it that doesn't relate to that one thing, and nothing should be plural. You can't have multiple values for a attribute. All right, let's do some relations real quickly, and then, as I said, we got about a half hour. We can probably make it. I'm going to make another text box. I will post these, and also there's this morning's, so you can compare the two, right? You guys have more questions than the morning did. That's not bad. That's it's not bad at all. But I am going to talk about types of relations. So there are 3 types of relations. Does anybody know what they are? There's one-to-one, right? One-to-many, and many-to-many. Okay, so a couple of things about them. This one is extremely rare. It's you can build a dozen databases and never see a one-to-one relationship. It happens. Technically, it only happens if 2 entities have exactly the same primary key. One of the situations in which it might happen, although this isn't your best strategy, you might have like a human resources database where you have 2 employee tables, one with all their public information, one with all the private information like their social security number and address and things like that. And they would both have the same employee ID as the primary key. That would be a one-to-one relationship. There's a couple of other situations where it would occur, but it's really, really rare. It's legal, but it's really rare. It's not one you encounter very much. Many-to-many, I'll talk about it next, is fairly common, but logically it's perfectly okay, but it's not legal in a database. And the reason is that the database can't resolve it. All right, so if we look at here, this is actually what happens with a many-to-many relationship. We had one book can have many authors. Each author can have many books, right? That's a many-to-many relationship. So what you have to do with a many-to-many relationship is you have to create a linking table that resolves it into 2 one-to-many relationships. One book can have many authors. One author can have many books. This resolves it into the one-to-many. 99% of all of your relationships will be one-to-many. One department, many employees, right? One book, many authors.
It's not possible to have many.
Many-to-many relationships do not work in a database. The database software cannot resolve them. It's a mathematical problem. So you have to create these linking tables so that they become, instead of many-to-many, it becomes one-to-many, one-to-many. So let's do the relationships real quickly. And this isn't your only, as I said, I don't expect this to sink in entirely at this point. I really don't. So the owner here, instead of the owner, what I would probably do is customer ID, right? So a customer, I'm just going to draw from here to here, and we'll talk about that. And then I will just type over here foreign key. You don't have to, but it makes it clear. So this is what's called a crow's foot relation. There are other ways you can do this. You can use arrows and stuff, but the crow's foot is really common. This is the crow's foot side. It's the 3-prong. And what it is the mini side. One customer could have many vehicles. This is also the number of owners. I mean, you probably only care about that if the same vehicle comes to the same Jiffy Lube with a different owner. But you can have that. That would actually all work because you could list a different customer ID with that same vehicle later on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a primary key. It never can repeat in the customer table. But in the as a foreign key, it can repeat as many times as it wants, as you need. So if a customer has 3 vehicles, the customer ID could repeat 3 different times with those 3 different vehicles. Does that make sense? As a primary key in the customer table, it can never repeat. But as a foreign key, it can repeat. Again, many times, one to many. There are variations on this one to many symbol, but I don't care about them. If I click on this line, you look up here, you'll see there's zeros and lines and lots of different endings. The main differences between them is what's called cardinality, and I'm not going to go into that much now. It just means that you can determine, like this is 0 or many, this is 1 or many. It doesn't matter really because the database won't enforce it anyway. If you want to enforce that, you have to do it with software, not with the database. So all I'm concerned about, and all I will be concerned about in this quarter, is that you have the 1 on the right side, the correct side, and the many on the correct side. 1 customer, many vehicles. If you get them backwards when you if you create the database that way, you won't be able to enter data. It just won't go in. So, but I'll help you get there, right? It's not something to panic about. So that's one. Employee. So we have our service and our service types, and we have our vehicle service, and this would probably be like a vehicle ID. I'm going to move things around slightly. I know this is big. I'm going to make it later so you can see the whole thing. I'm just moving this because I want the vehicle. We used the license number, so probably this would be the license number, whatever the primary key is. So I'm going to drag from here down to here, and it's not, as long as it connects to the box, it's okay. It doesn't have to connect to the actual field. And then I'll do a FK here. And again, the FK is just for your information, so to reinforce it as a foreign key. Vehicle service ID here would be a primary key. Does that make sense? These are all one-to-many relationships. And most of the relationships will be. Now, the service types and the service detail. So I might move, I'm trying to move it so that when I show the whole thing, it'll make sense. The vehicle service ID here ties it to the detail. And then the service type would tie to the detail because it's telling you what kind of, oops, down below. And there's one other, whoa, where did it go? Yeah. And then the detail with the employees. Yeah, so I'm going to move that down, try to move this up a little. So it's vehicle service detail ID is the foreign key. Whoa, what did I do there? And we need employee too, which is, if you don't get the thing just right. Have we got everything hooked up? couple of things about it. Let me change this zoom down. See if everything's hooked up. That's too small. I'm going to make it slightly bigger. Yeah. Couple of things. You don't want to go two ways. Relationships always go one way. Does that make sense? You don't want to go there and then come back. That won't let you, if you go both directions, it will not let you enter data again, because you won't be able to enter, say if you did employee to vehicle service and then came back up with the vehicle service to employee, it wouldn't let you enter the employee until you entered the vehicle service detail for the employee, and it wouldn't let you enter the vehicle service detail for employee until you'd entered an employee. So you end up in a loop that you can't fix. A lot of things, if you wanted to know what service types a particular customer had, you can get there. You can go from customer to vehicle to service detail to service types. As long as there's a path, right? Down to here, to here, to here, you can get that information. So a couple of things. I don't expect this, as I said, to all hang in there very, cleanly and nicely. One, it's complicated. It takes a while to get this. You're not born knowing how to do it, right? It's a pretty unnatural kind of thing to do. So it takes a while to get the feeling for it. You're always breaking things up into smaller and smaller bits. That's basically what normalization and relationships do to you. It's meant for the computer, not for humans. The human part is you would build an application like a website or something that would bring the information back together in a way that makes it make sense to the people using it. This is set up so that the computer can handle it. And the computer can follow these relationships, right? It can store the data. All of your data should be in one place only. Right? You should never have to type things in more than one place. It's possible, I did this in the other one, I'm not going to right now, but it's possible you could combine employee and customer in terms of like the phone, email, and name, because it kind of, we have here phone, email, and name. So we are kind of, and it's always possible that an employee could be a customer. So it's possible to combine these. If you want to look at that, you can see the other one. It would work this way, though. This as it is, it would work still. Questions, because that's a lot, and we ended up speeding it a little at the end.
So, primary key and function keys.
Foreign key, yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's
There's a
fine.
function key. Foreign key. They're involved with developing a relationship between each box.
It's how they relate to each other.
That's how they relate. How you relate to each box.
Right, so we want to know which customer owns a vehicle. So they have a number, right, or some kind of a customer key.
There's too many repeating words in this. I'm getting things mixed up. I don't know how to connect things.
We'll take a look at it here in a second. But a primary key, so say your customer key is 123.
Okay.
So over here you type 123. That tells you that if you look up the 123 in this table, it'll tell you who owns this vehicle.
Okay.
So the goal of this is simply to minimize repetition. The only repetition should be the primary key, and it's used to link things. Yeah.
I think he get confused because they become name and name together.
Right. Well, that's why I said you could probably combine these two. Let's see what you got. That's actually looking pretty good. So the one thing that we need, where is that? The vehicle service detail. Is you probably want vehicle service ID related to that, and then I think everything's hooked up.
Oh. So I already have vehicle service ID.
Yeah, vehicle service ID to, do you have vehicle service ID? You do. See, so this vehicle service ID should hook to that one. And then I think everything, it looks like everything's hooked
I already
up.
have, I already have vehicle service ID hooked up to something else.
It can be hooked to more than one.
Okay.
Some things can have more than one foreign key, right? If we were to look at this table, it would be nothing but numbers. So,
Also, what constitutes a foreign key and a primary key?
so a primary key, like the employee number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Customer number. So a primary key within the customer table, no two customers can have the same key, same ID.
Mm-hmm.
So every customer has their own customer number.
Mm-hmm.
That customer number can be repeated over here, and here it can happen more than once if they have more than one vehicle. So it could, I mean, say the customer 1, 2, 3. Say they had a Prius, and that you tie that so they have their license number. It's a Prius Toyota 2011. Customer 1, 2, 3.
I'm sorry, I'm lost.
Okay. Let me do.
So would it be a one-to-one for the customer and the employee, or?
No, I would just put them all in the. It would still be a one-to-many, even though logically it's one-to-one. Unless, let me do like a spreadsheet. So to do that, I think I have to go to Google, because I don't think they have Office on here. It's not where I want it to go. I do not want Bing. So I'm going to go to Google Drive, and I'm going to do a Sheets. And I'm going to make this big. All right, so let's say that we had customer. And I'm going to customer ID, customer name. That's all I'm going to put in here. And I'm going to do customer 1. Oh, that's actually, so these should be down below. Let's just move that. Oh, come on, drag.
Easier to just type it again. Huh?
Yes, it would. So customer is the table. I'm going to put customer ID, customer name. So the ID is 1, Smith, 2, Jones. Anybody have a third name?
Michael.
Okay. 3, Michael. All right. So we've got customers, right? They have their ID. So these are the keys, right? This is the primary key for those customers. So I'm going to do vehicle over here. And so in the vehicle, I'll have, we did license, and then we did customer ID, and then we did, I'm just going to do, make, sounds good. So the license and customer ID, this is car belongs to customer 1, and it's a, I don't know, Mustang. All right, and then I'm going to do another license, and then although I should probably, I'm going to put a number or a letter in front of that just so it align. No.
So primary key can have letter in it too.
What?
How many key can have letter in it?
It can. It doesn't have to be a number.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I'm going to do 2, and he has a Prius. And then I'm going to do another letter, mess this up. And he also has a, what is he going to have? Dodge Ram. Totally the opposite of a Prius. Okay. So a Dodge Ram truck. And then we'll do another license plate and 3, and we'll just say a what? Subaru? Doesn't matter. Subaru. All right. So does this make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
These are the key fields, right? Each customer has a unique number. These are the foreign keys. So this says that Smith owns a Mustang. There's no Smith in the vehicle table, but there's a 1. When I go here, I can say that that 1 relates to Smith. Right?
Can you put foreign on top of this? So what you're saying is a foreign key?
Yeah, so this is a foreign key. So this 1 relates to the 1 in customer, which tells me that it's Smith. That's how they relate. You don't have to repeat their name. You don't have to repeat anything about the customer. It's just the number that relates it to the customer in the customer table.
So where's the primary key?
So customer ID is the primary key over here. And license is the primary key here. I guess if I'm doing it that way, let's put the FK after it. Does that make sense? So this number 1 hooks to this number 1, which tells me that it's Smith, and whatever the customer information is. You don't need to repeat any other information about the customer. Jones has 2 cars, so notice the 2 repeats. He has a Prius and a Dodge Ram because he's schizophrenic or whatever. Likes gas guzzlers and gas savers. So this 2 is repeated twice, but both of them refer only to Jones, right? So these 2 refer to, again, the foreign key always refers you back to a primary key in the other table. And in number 3, Michael, he has the Subaru. So 3 to 3. The number in the foreign key, this number refers to this number and is how you relate the 2 pieces of information. Does that make sense?
I'll look it up.
Look at it. Think about it for a while, and then we can talk about it. There'll be times. So let's go back. These are just the headings. Oh, that's because that's sheets. So if I go back to here, again, the customer ID of vehicle. We could also do this like the employee. Each employee will have a number. It'll repeat as many times as they work on a car down here. Right? Thank you. As I say, give it a time. I don't expect this to sink in immediately. I don't, because it's complicated. It is complicated.
You save this on here?
I'm going to save it. If you want to save it, it actually is saved in the environment.
That file that we made, the free file?
What?
In that free?
Yeah, it'll stay there.
Okay.
One of the things that when you do these, if you want to turn them in, there's a couple of ways to do them. You could share the document with me. So one of the things, if you do share, you can get you should name it. So if I were to do car. I'm just going to call it car. If I save that, so, and then it'll get a shareable link. And if you paste that link into the assignment, there's 3 ways to turn in an assignment. Like you could take a picture of this and you could upload it. Or you can basically get this link, and one of the ways to turn things in is to share a link. So the link will work. Just get this link, copy it, and paste it into Canvas, and it will work.
Remove it, and you might not be able to see it.
So if you give me the link, I can see it.
Like this, remove the file.
If you move the file, I won't be able to see it. It has to be in here. Now the other thing is you can save it. I'm going to be done. I'm not going to share this. I will copy it as a picture. There is a file, and then there's a download as, and you can download it as a PDF or as an image. So I would not do the CSV or the Visio, but you could do PDF or an image. So JPEG or PNG or PDF, and then you could upload that. Those also work. This one you don't have to turn in. This is just an example, and I'm going to post it in the blog, and I'll post the video. Okay? And we can talk about it again as you need. I'll probably individually. When you turn things in, I will spend a lot of time commenting them. So don't panic. So I am going to try to get all this onto a single page.
Continue the video, like putting
I did continue it. I'm going to stop it.